Hey, we have a really fun VintCo vintage bikes for you today. We have Don Hutchison, who has just a garage full of really cool vintage bikes. And have you counted how many you have?
We don't like to count you don't feel any better when you know exactly how many you have.
Well, I think it'd be hard to count because how do you count, because there's bikes that are just like half of a bike, a quarter of a bike. They're not really bikes. Like, it's just a frame. Some are a frame with wheels. So, like, what do you count as a bike? But we got two bikes here, and what's going to be fun about this, we got a 79 CR250 side by side. Don, this one, he just is real interesting. There's a lot of really cool parts about this one, and he's thinking it's a C&J frame, right? CR250?
Yeah, I bought it without being able to research it, but it's got, based on everything I know about C&J frames, it appears to be a C&J chassis from the period, from 79 era. If you compare it to the stock chassis bike, everything's different about it. If you look at the shock angle, the swing arm is clearly aftermarket. You see the billet clamps on it. This would have been a really special bike back in the day. There was a lot of experimentation going on at that time. So obviously somebody built this bike for testing. There's a stamping on the head tube that says FRC 004.
Show that in here. You can
if
see
you
it.
can
Right in.
if you can pick
close.
that up.
Can you see it?
So it'd be great to find out what the history of it is, but I haven't had much time to really research it. Unfortunately, I didn't buy it from the original owner, so there was somebody in between, so they couldn't tell me about it. And there is a Facebook group for C&J chassis, and I need to post pictures on there and see if somebody on there could tell me, maybe what it is. In my head, I always thought FRC might be Fox Racing Corporation, because those are Fox shocks.
Yeah, so it's a very cool bike. And as you get over here, we have one it's a 79. And what's aftermarket on this bike?
So this particular bike would have been all the goodies that Fox made in that time frame. The Fox factory swing arm, those are Fox remote reservoir shocks, which were kind of coming out about that time, 79, 80. The coolest part about this bike is the Fox forks. Those were huge improvement over stock. Those are 44 millimeter forks versus the 38s that came on the bike. They only made 200 sets of those total back in the day.
Didn't you say that you think these forks are kind of worth probably $3,000 range?
Yeah, I think if you could find a set, eBay, wherever, 3,000 would be going rate or more. The swing arms are ultra rail. So even though a lot of people might look this bike and thinks it's just a pile, in reality, if you break it down, it's got a lot of great parts on it. And if you think about this is a 1979 motorcycle, it's really in pretty good shape overall.
Oh, no, we see bikes that are 20 years newer than this that look a whole lot worse. From your memory, back in the day, what do you think those swing arms cost back then to buy, and the shocks, that kind of stuff?
Well, we could actually look it up and get it accurately, but they were probably $250, $300 maybe for a swing arm. The forks, I don't remember, but maybe they would have been $500 or something.
And do you remember what the bike was new back to buy a stock
one?
Don't. But it was probably less than 2,000, right?
Right.
Yep.
And this particular bike, they made a zillion of them. These bikes are super popular for vintage racing. They just produced a ton of them, and there's a lot of them out there, and they're just very unique with the red engine and the Red Rock is what they call them.
And we showed you before starting this thing with the left side start. You got the starting technique down on these.
Yeah, you stand. I stand off the bike. I've never seen anybody that could start one sitting on it. I'm sure there's a guy out there that could do it, but I've never learned how to do it.
Yeah, for sure, not me. So you really like these bikes, and both of them. On the C&J one, we think is C&J. You can see like a lot of work went into that airbox, and so many little cool pieces that you see.
This I would think would be the equivalent of a works bike today.
Yeah.
You can't even imagine a bike today where you built it and somebody built you an entirely new chassis.
Now, are you thinking about restoring this one?
Probably, yes. That one, no.
Okay, you're going to kind of leave it.
I'll clean it up and do a few things, but Yeah, but I don't believe that bike will get restored. I think it's better off the way it is. This one, I think it would be okay to restore. I'd like it better if it was nice looking.
Yeah. And I kind of like the tanks are different.
Yeah, this is an aftermarket tank.
Yeah.
So when I restore it, I'll put a correct tank on it.
Yeah. It doesn't look as cool as the stock tank.
And then, you know, with these bikes, I mean, who knows, you know, once it was what it looked like when it was actually, after it was put together, somebody maybe put a desert tank on it because they were racing off-road in the early 80s or something and just thought they had acquired a really cool bike.
Yep. So are these Fox swing arms pretty hard to find nowadays?
Yes. An original one, yeah, they're certainly the holy grail of Elsinore parts.
It's crazy how well they look like they're built and how long it seems like they last. I mean, do you see very many of them that are cracked or destroyed?
No, I haven't. I mean, they reproduce them. There's a guy that's reproducing them. So
he's got to charge way more than $250 for them.
Yeah, I would think if you had one reproduced, you'd be at least $1,000 today. At
might
least
be double that. Yeah. I could see because just how much work you'd have, how much material and work and welding you'd have into that thing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff being reproduced for these bikes. The two guys that are doing the most are both in England, in the UK.
Yeah. What's that guy's name?
There's Chesterfield. I want to say Elderfields is one of the guys, and then the other name escapes me. It'll come to me. But there's two different guys in England that build.
They build clamps and everything.
Right.
They do all kinds of cool machine parts.
Yeah, all the stuff to make these bikes really work good. And they both do restorations and things like that.
Well, that's great looking bikes. So anyway, real fun time checking these out. Hopefully you enjoyed these VintCo racer builds here. For those Honda fans out there, I think you're going to find these 79 Hondas pretty cool.